Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we don't just summarize knowledge, we unlock its power and distill the most actionable insights specifically for you.
Our mission today is a really fascinating one.
We're taking a deep dive into the philosophy and, the real science of small changes.
We call them atomic habits.
And it's all about why focusing on these tiny incremental improvements is the true non-negotiable path to achieving, well, truly remarkable compounding results in your life or your work.
We're really trying to cut through all that noise that tells you success requires some kind of sudden, massive overhaul.
Right.
Instead, we're exploring the integrated model that comes from cognitive and behavioral sciences, and it proves that mastery is, it's simply the product of small daily actions.
So this deep dive is basically your shortcut to understanding that fundamental structure of behavior change.
Yeah, and we're really emphasizing the aha moments that make all the abstract science feel immediately practical.
And to really grasp the profound world-altering potential of these atomic habits, I think we have to start with the man who codified the system, James Clear.
You do.
And we have to start with the catastrophic moment that forced him to understand incremental change at, like, a cellular level.
This isn't just some self-help theory he came up with. It's a story of biological and behavioral triumph born right out of a crisis.
It's the ultimate example of hitting rock bottom.
Totally. And finding success not through a single heroic effort, but through these microscopic adjustments.
So, set the scene for us.
Okay, so this happened on the final day of his sophomore year of high school. He was playing baseball, and another player took a full swing
Oh, I know this story. It's brutal.
and accidentally struck James directly in the face with the bat.
The details of the injury are, they're visceral, but I think they're really crucial to the story.
They are. The impact was immediate and devastating.
The bat crushed his nose into a distorted U shape.
He sustained multiple skull fractures. It shattered both of his eye sockets, and the sheer force of it caused his brain tissue to just slam violently against the inside of his skull.
And he immediately struggled with basic functions.
He had a seizure. He stopped breathing entirely and slipped into a coma.
The physical and cognitive consequences were just staggering, and the recovery, it was agonizingly slow.
For weeks, he suffered from double vision.
Mm.
I mean, literally impossible to see straight or focus on a single point.
It took 8 full months before he was even allowed to drive a car again.
And there's this one detail that just underscores the horrific extent of the damage. During a routine test, he blew his nose.
Yeah.
And the air, instead of exiting normally, it forced its way to the fractures in his eye socket and pushed his left eye outward.
Held precariously only by the optic nerve. I mean, can you imagine?
Unbelievable.
That is a life-altering trauma. And when he finally returned to normal life, specifically to baseball, which was his passion.
The situation felt humiliating.
Absolutely. After all that work, he was the only junior cut from the varsity team.
Relegated to playing with the sophomores on junior varsity. His dreams of playing professionally, they seemed completely shattered.
But this is where the system begins to take over. This is the crucial part.
Right. He didn't despair or try to win back his spot with one massive practice session. He focused entirely on a disciplined strategy of small, consistent habits.
He started making it a habit to lift weights multiple times per week.
Yeah, turning his 6'4", very lightweight frame into a much stronger athlete.
He also meticulously improved his study habits and, crucially, developed these really strict sleep habits.
It was the relentless consistency of these small habits, not the severity of the initial injury, that dictated his final trajectory.
And by his junior year, he wasn't just back on varsity.
No, he was team captain and an all-conference selection.
The level of success he eventually achieved was just far beyond anything he could have imagined when he first started those tiny habits.
It proves that success isn't about dramatic transformation. It's the product of daily, atomic habits just stacking up over time.
That narrative of rebuilding life 1% at a time perfectly introduces this concept of the aggregation of marginal gains.
It really does. When we look at any high-performing individual or organization, you see the results of compounded micro-improvements, not massive, sudden leaps.
And the definitive, the world-famous case study for this is the massive turnaround of British cycling.
Oh, for sure. For almost a century, they were utterly irrelevant in global competitive cycling.
Since 1908, they had won a solitary Olympic gold medal. That's it.
Their reputation was so toxic that manufacturers actively avoided selling them equipment.
Yeah, they didn't want to be associated with them. But the entire cultural shift began in 2003 when they brought in Dave Brailsford as the performance director.
And his philosophy was revolutionary in its simplicity, the aggregation of marginal gains. His theory was to identify every single thing that goes into riding a bike and then improve that single element by just 1%.
And when we say everything, we really mean everything.
Oh yeah, from the obvious to the almost ridiculous.
They started with standard stuff, redesigning ergonomically superior bike seats, testing various fabrics in a wind tunnel to find the one with the least drag for the racing suits.
Sure, the usual performance
Mhm.
stuff, but then the search for the marginal gain became truly forensic.
It really did.
They tested specific types of massage gels to see which combination delivered the fastest muscle recovery.
They hired a surgeon solely to teach the riders the optimum way to wash their hands.
Just to reduce their susceptibility to common colds and make sure they miss minimal training days.
And they determined the precise ideal mattresses and pillows for each individual athlete to optimize deep REM sleep.
At home and on the road.
My favorite detail, though, is the effort they put into controlling the environment.
The white truck.
Yes, they didn't just clean the equipment, they painted the inside of the team truck white.
And the reason was so they could spot tiny specks of dust that might otherwise go unnoticed and degrade the performance of these finely tuned bike components.
It's a microscopic adjustment in cleanliness that led to a marginal gain in equipment reliability. Incredible.
And the outcome was immediate and staggering. Just 5 years after Brailsford took over, British cyclists dominated the 2008 Olympics in Beijing.
And over the next decade, between 2007 and 2017,
They captured 178 world championships, secured 66 Olympic medals, and achieved 5 Tour de France victories.
it's just an unprecedented level of success built on thousands of virtually invisible 1% decisions.
But wait, I have to stop you there. This sounds fantastic for a globally funded team of professional athletes, but how does this apply to me or to the average learner?
That's a great question. If I have to make thousands of tiny changes to see results, isn't that just exhausting and complicated?
That's a common and important resistance point. And the math of compounding growth is the answer. It addresses exactly why this effort isn't exhausting, but transformative.
So break it down.
If you commit to getting just 1% better every single day for 1 year, you don't merely become 3.65 times better.
You become nearly 37 times better by the end of the year.
37 times better.
Wow, that makes the scale of the small changes exponentially more meaningful than the difficulty of implementing them.
Exactly. And conversely, if you decline by 1% every day, if you watch a little too much TV, eat one slightly unhealthy snack, skip that small habit.
You're not just getting a little worse.
By the end of the year, you are decaying almost entirely to zero. The daily direction of that 1% is everything.
Yet we constantly see people, ourselves included, dismiss these tiny changes because the results don't show up right away.
Oh, all the time.
If you go to the gym for a week, you don't look like a different person, you save a little money for a month, you aren't rich. This is the plateau of latent potential.
And that plateau is the silent killer of habits. We expect progress to be linear, but success is usually delayed.
There's a period, often weeks or months, where you are putting in the effort, you're making the 1% change, but you see absolutely zero tangible results.
And it feels like your effort is being wasted. This frustration causes people to conclude this system isn't working, and they revert to their old routines right before the breakthrough happens.
So how do we push past that frustrating plateau?
By entirely shifting the focus from the results, the outcome, to the process, the system.
Scott Adams, the famous cartoonist, made a brilliant distinction here.
He did. Goals are the results you want, like winning a championship. But systems are the processes that lead to those results, like managing your practice schedule.
So, if I'm a writer, the goal is to publish a novel.
Right.
The system is the process of showing up at the keyboard every morning at 8 a.m., writing 500 words, and editing yesterday's work.
Precisely. And the counterintuitive insight is that if you ignore the goal entirely and focus only on refining your system, making that 8 a.m., 500-word process easier, more attractive, more satisfying, you would still inevitably succeed.
Let's delve into why focusing on goals alone is so insufficient. What are the major pitfalls of being goal-oriented?
Okay, there are 4 major structural deficiencies with goals. First, achieving a goal only changes your life for a moment.
Right. Once the marathon is run or the target weight is hit, you celebrate. But if the underlying system that produced the result hasn't changed, you just revert.
It's the classic yo-yo effect.
Yeah.
You've temporarily solved the symptom, not the systemic root cause.
That makes perfect sense. The goal is the result, but the system is the infrastructure.
Second, goals create a restrictive, binary definition of happiness. We constantly tell ourselves, I'll finally be happy when I hit that sales number, or I'll be satisfied when I get that promotion.
Which inherently sets up a waiting period for satisfaction, constantly pushing contentment into the future.
Whereas a system-first mentality allows you to be satisfied anytime your system is running correctly, regardless of the ultimate outcome. You can be proud of the process today.
And third, goals often create conflict with long-term, endless progress.
Yes, once the runner crosses the finish line, they're motivated, the goal is gone, and they stop training.
The purpose of building a system is to continue playing the game indefinitely.
So long-term thinking must be goalless thinking, focused on endless refinement of the process itself.
And this leads to the ultimate takeaway from this section, which is really the foundational thesis of Atomic Habits.
You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
And Atomic Habits are simply the fundamental units, the atoms of that continuous system of growth.
Once we commit to building better systems, though, we have to look deeper than just actions. We have to look at the beliefs that underpin those systems.
We visualize change in 3 layers, like an onion. Outcomes, which are the results you get.
Processes, the actions you take.
And at the very core, identity, the beliefs you hold.
And most people mistakenly try to initiate change from the outside in. They focus on the outcomes. I want to earn more money, or I want to look better.
But the deepest, most durable change happens when you shift your core identity first.
It's fundamentally about changing your beliefs, your worldview, and your self-image.
Why is that identity layer so crucial, though? Can't I just force myself to do the right thing long enough for it to stick?
Not if it conflicts with who you believe you are. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will simply not last.
So if my stated outcome is better health, but deep down, my identity prioritizes immediate comfort over accomplishment.
You will always revert to the couch rather than the gym. To sustain the action, you have to change the underlying self-image first.
That sounds like a major psychological hurdle. Can you give a strong example of this identity shift in action?
Absolutely. Let's talk about the anecdote of writer Brian Clark and his lifelong habit of chewing his fingernails.
Right, which started as a nervous habit in childhood.
He managed to stop temporarily through sheer willpower and a conscious effort to resist. But the habit always crept back when his stress peaked.
So he's stuck in that classic loop of relapse. What changed?
He decided to get his first professional manicure. The manicurist, noticing his newly grown nails, complimented him, saying he had healthy, attractive nails.
And that one interaction was the pivot point.
Exactly. The change wasn't sustained because of the cost or the temporary willpower. It became permanent because he shifted his identity.
He stopped chewing his nails because he took profound pride in his appearance.
And now saw himself as someone who properly cares for and maintains their nails.
Hmm?
His identity became congruent with the desired behavior.
That makes it so clear. The goal isn't just to perform the action, say, writing 500 words.
The goal is to become a writer.
The goal isn't to run a marathon.
The goal is to become a runner.
And when your behavior and identity are perfectly aligned, you are no longer forcing yourself to do the right thing.
You are simply acting consistently with the person you already believe yourself to be. Doing the right thing becomes easy, almost reflexive.
So how do we actually manufacture that identity change? It sounds complicated, but you mentioned a simple 2-step process.
It is surprisingly straightforward. Step 1, decide what kind of person you want to be. Be specific.
So not, I want to lose weight, but I want to be the kind of person who is fit and prioritizes movement.
Exactly. And step 2, prove it to yourself with small wins. Every single time you complete an atomic habit, you are casting a vote for that desired identity.
So if I show up at the gym for 5 minutes, even if I don't do a full workout, I'm casting a vote for the identity of someone who doesn't skip the gym.
And enough votes eventually changes the ledger. The power comes from repetition, not intensity. The evidence just stacks up.
However, this allegiance to identity is a double-edged sword.
It is. Internal pressure to maintain a current, limiting self-image creates huge barriers to progress.
You mean those ingrained mental stories we tell ourselves, like, I'm bad with technology, or I'm not a morning person?
Precisely. Those limiting self-stories are rigid identities. If you identify as someone who is terrible at public speaking, your brain will actively resist opportunities for public speaking to avoid contradicting that self-image.
Even if you consciously desire the skill.
Right. And that explains why progress so often stalls. We need to continuously edit our internal narrative.
Progress is contingent upon continuously editing, upgrading, and expanding your identity.
You have to be willing to unlearn old ingrained beliefs. Becoming the best version of yourself isn't a final destination. It's a process of continuous, iterative microevolution of the self, fueled one atomic habit at a time.
So we've established the why focus on the system and your identity. Now let's get into the mechanism. How are habits actually formed in the brain? The science here is key.
And we can trace this back to the late 1800s with the psychologist Edward Thorndike, who was trying to understand how animals learned new behaviors. He'd put cats inside his famous puzzle box.
And the cats initially would just engage in random, frantic behaviors trying to escape, right?
Right. But eventually they would accidentally press a lever, which resulted in the satisfying consequence of escape and receiving food.
Through repetition, the cat's brains learn to associate the sight of the box and the feeling of confinement with the action of pressing the lever.
Exactly. Cat 12, for example, dropped its escape time from 160 seconds down to just 6 seconds. Thorndike summarized this in his law of effect. Behaviors followed by satisfying consequences tend to be repeated.
And this highlights the brain's fundamental goal: efficiency. It's essentially a pattern recognition machine.
Habits are simply mental shortcuts learned from repeated experience. They move tasks from the conscious, slow, and effortful frontal cortex to the non-conscious, fast, and automatic basal ganglia.
This drastically reduces cognitive load.
The conscious mind is a limited resource, capable of focusing on only one major problem at a time. Habit formation frees up that mental capacity.
I often hear people worry that routines and habits restrict their freedom,
Yeah.
but you are arguing the opposite.
Habits create freedom. Think about it. If you have established good financial habits, you are free from the anxiety of constantly chasing the next dollar.
And if you have automatic good learning habits, your mind is free to focus on creativity and tackling genuinely new challenges.
Because the fundamental routines are handled without conscious effort. Habits are tools for maximizing attention.
So let's break down the mechanics of the loop itself. Every habit, whether it's checking your phone or brushing your teeth, follows the same 4 steps in sequence.
The CCRR loop, it starts with the cue. The cue is the trigger fragment of sensory information that predicts a reward.
And cues can be internal, like a feeling, or external, like a sight or sound.
And your brain is continuously scanning the environment for these hints.
The cue initiates the craving. This is the critical motivational engine.
The craving is the desire to change your internal state. And I think it's crucial to emphasize here that we don't crave the habit itself.
Right. You don't crave the cigarette. You crave the relief from the anxiety that smoking provides.
Exactly. You don't crave scrolling Instagram. You crave the sense of connection or the distraction from your work. Every craving is a desire to achieve a specific emotional or physiological change.
Next is the response. This is the physical or mental action you take, the habit itself.
The response must be easy and swift enough to overcome the inherent friction of the action. This leads directly to the reward.
And the reward serves 2 distinct functions. First, it satisfies the craving, providing momentary contentment.
And second, and this is the feedback loop, it teaches the brain. This action worked. Remember this for the next time we encounter that cue.
That continuous feedback loop is what makes the behavior automatic. If the reward doesn't satisfy the craving, the loop breaks.
Right. And translating this fundamental loop cue, craving, response, reward gives us the actionable framework we use to engineer better behavior. We call these the 4 laws of behavior change.
So to create a good habit, you need to manipulate the levers to make it obvious, the cue,
Attractive, the craving,
easy, the response.
and satisfying, the reward.
And conversely, to break a bad habit, you apply the inversion of those laws. Make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying.
Okay, so let's dive into the practical applications, starting with that first law. Make it obvious, which is all about the cue.
And the initial step, surprisingly, isn't planning the habit, but becoming intensely aware of what you are already doing.
Awareness is the foundation. As habits become automatic, they become totally invisible to our conscious mind.
We see this danger vividly in professional settings. There was that story of the retail clerk who had to cut up gift cards every shift.
Yeah, and one day on autopilot, she took a customer's actual credit card and cut it in half, simply because the action was non-conscious.
Behavior change always starts by raising that non-conscious behavior to a conscious level.
So what techniques can we use to gain that brutal self-awareness?
The first and most essential is the habit scorecard.
And this is not a judgment exercise, it's an inventory. You simply list out every single habit you perform in a day,
From checking your phone to making coffee to hitting snooze.
and you mark them as positive, plus negative, or neutral. This forces intellectual honesty about what your systems are actually producing.
That must be quite eye-opening for most people, realizing how much of their day is driven by negative or neutral routines.
Oh, it is. Another powerful technique comes from the Japanese railway system, pointing and calling.
Right. Train operators don't just see a dial or a signal, they verbally state their actions and outcomes.
Signal is green, or speedometer says 65. By using their eyes, hands, mouth, and ears, they force the non-conscious action into conscious awareness.
And this process is so effective at reducing human error that it's credited with saving a woman's life when a conductor, rigorously practicing the technique, noticed her arm stuck in a train door.
He was trained to see and state every anomaly.
So once we're aware of the systems we have, we need to plan the good ones with precision. You call this implementation intentions.
Yes, this is a plan made beforehand about exactly when and where to act, and it sweeps away foggy goals like, I want to work out more.
The formula is simple. I will behavior at time and location.
The clarity here seems to override the need for massive motivation.
It does. In a study designed to encourage better exercise habits, the control group and the group that read motivational materials both had really low adherence.
But the third group, which wrote out a specific implementation intention, I will exercise for 20 minutes on Monday at 6 p.m. at the gym, showed an incredible 91% adherence rate.
When the cue is predictable, the behavior follows almost automatically.
My preferred tactic for implementation is habit stacking, linking a new habit to a current established habit using a specific cue.
This is masterful because it leverages the existing neural pathways. You don't need to find new motivation, you just piggyback.
But specificity is crucial. The formula is, after I current habit, I will new habit.
So instead of, when I take a break for lunch, I will do 10 push-ups, it needs to be tight.
When I close my laptop for lunch, I will do 10 push-ups next to my desk. That current habit, closing the laptop, is the unambiguous cue.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the master lever for making a cue obvious. The environment.
Environment is truly the invisible hand shaping our behavior. We even have an equation for this, Lewin's equation, BFFPE.
Which states that behavior B is a function of the person P in their environment E.
So even if I, the person P, have high motivation, a poorly designed environment E can still dictate a negative behavior B.
Precisely. If you are trying to eat healthy, but the bowl of M&Ms sits right in the center of your desk, the environmental cue vision will eventually win.
Vision is so dominant. Approximately 10 million of our 11 million sensory receptors are dedicated to sight. What we see determines what we do.
This is why small environmental changes have massive effects, like that hospital cafeteria example.
Yes, the Massachusetts General Hospital cafeteria wanted people to drink healthier options. They didn't preach or mandate.
They just moved bottled water to the front of the display case and put soda in the less convenient back corner.
And water sales skyrocketed, and soda sales plummeted, purely through environmental design.
This leads to the strategy of one space, one use.
Yes, your brain associates contexts with behaviors. If you try to relax on the couch where you also habitually check work emails, the contexts clash.
And the easier habit, which is email checking because it offers that immediate variable reward, usually wins.
So creating designated activity zones, a chair only for reading, a desk only for writing, a bed only for sleeping, helps maintain stability and predictability, which is exactly what habits rely on.
And what if someone needs a truly radical habit change, say quitting smoking or breaking a highly ingrained addiction?
Then the most powerful tactic is to escape the old context entirely, as hard as that sounds.
Habits are easier to change in a new environment because you instantly eliminate the subtle, old triggers.
Look at the Vietnam War heroin study. Soldiers who became addicted overseas when returning home, an environment devoid of their previous cues, had an incredibly low relapse rate of about 5%.
Whereas those who returned to their old neighborhoods where all the environmental cues were present had a typical 90% relapse rate.
The environment was 95% of the battle.
That transition from the cue to the craving is so powerful. And the second law, make it attractive, deals with this motivational force.
So why are so many modern habits, scrolling, snacking, gambling, so irresistible, even when we know they're detrimental?
It's because we live in a world saturated with supernormal stimuli that exploit our ancient, hardwired reward centers.
The brain is just reacting to exaggerated cues. Think about Nico Tinbergen's famous experiment with herring gulls.
Right, the baby chicks pecked at the small red spot on their parents' beaks to get fed.
But when Tinbergen offered them a fake cardboard beak with 3 large, exaggerated red spots, the chicks went wild, preferring the manufactured hyperstimulus over the real thing.
And the modern food industry is the absolute master of the supernormal stimulus.
Oh, absolutely. Our Paleolithic brains evolved to intensely crave salt, sugar, and fat because they were historically scarce and crucial for survival.
Modern science creates hyperpalatable foods using dynamic contrast, combining crunchy and creamy textures, and optimizes for the perfect bliss point of salt, sugar, and fat.
These foods are scientifically engineered to bypass our natural satiety signals, making them irresistibly attractive and encouraging overconsumption.
So what's driving that irresistible pull in the brain? Is it just pleasure?
It's more subtle than that. It's dopamine.
For decades, we thought dopamine was purely about pleasure.
But studies, notably the 1954 rat experiments, showed that rats without dopamine lost all will to live. They didn't seek food or water, not because they didn't enjoy the reward.
But because they lacked the motivation to pursue it.
So dopamine drives anticipation, not just the pleasure of receiving the reward.
Crucially, yes, dopamine spikes when we anticipate the reward.
Think about gambling addicts. The highest dopamine release occurs right before they place the bet, when the potential outcome is uncertain and exciting.
That anticipation fuels the craving and thus the motivation to act. If we can link our necessary habits to this anticipation loop, we can amplify motivation.
So how do we harness that motivational anticipation for good habits?
The best technique is temptation bundling. This is the practical application of Premack's principle.
Which states that a high-frequency desired behavior can be used as a reinforcer for a low-frequency needed behavior. You pair an action you need to do with an activity you already intensely want to do.
Like the story of the engineering student Ronan Byrne and his Netflix stationary bike.
Exactly. Ronan loved Netflix, but he knew he needed to cycle. So he engineered his bike so the TV would only run if the bike was going above a certain speed.
He was bundling the desired activity, Netflix, with the needed activity, cycling.
He wasn't motivating himself to cycle. He was motivating himself to watch Netflix.
That's a profound mental shift. You can apply this formula. After I need, you can sell draft financial reports, I will want simply listen to my favorite new album.
It works across the board. Advertisers use it constantly. Think of ABC's TGIT campaign.
Right, which bundled the desired action, watching must-see TV, with the suggested activity of relaxing with popcorn and red wine.
They made the habit of tuning in attractive by pairing it with a prescribed desirable ritual.
Beyond self-motivation, though, our habits are hugely influenced by social dynamics.
We have an ancient, deep-seated desire to belong to the tribe, and habits become attractive when they help us fit in.
We imitate 3 groups. First, the closest our family and friends.
We unconsciously absorb their habits. Studies have shown that if your close friend becomes obese, your probability of also becoming obese increases by 57%. We just normalize their behavior.
Second, the many. We are wired for conformity.
The Ash conformity experiments proved this, where participants chose the clearly wrong line length just to align with the rest of the group of actors.
75% of subjects conformed at least once. The reward of being accepted by the tribe often outweighs the reward of being right.
And third, the powerful. We mimic successful people, those who hold status, because we desire that status ourselves.
We copy the CEO's communication style, their workout routines, or their reading list.
The strategic implication is clear. The best way to make a good habit attractive is to join a culture or a group where your desired behavior is already the normal, accepted, and praised behavior.
That presents a huge challenge for someone trying to quit drinking or smoking if their core friend group relies on those habits for social bonding.
It's the ultimate friction. Changing the tribe can be incredibly difficult. If changing your personal habit means challenging the tribe's norms, the social cost can be unattractive enough to kill the habit entirely.
Finally, let's talk about the inversion for bad habits.
Yeah.
How do we make them unattractive by reframing the cravings?
Right, this is where your internal language becomes paramount. You need to stop viewing the habit as a burden.
So instead of saying, I have to wake up early for work, you say, I get to wake up early for work and pursue my goals.
That small shift transforms a responsibility into an opportunity.
It reframes the sacrifice. Saving money isn't a sacrifice of immediate pleasure, it's an investment in future freedom.
Exactly. You are reframing the purpose of the action. Even confronting negative habits can be reframed.
Like with meditation, if you're meditating and your mind wanders, don't view that as a failure.
Right. View the distraction as an opportunity to practice returning to the breath, the core skill of meditation. That reframing turns the frustration of distraction into the satisfaction of successful practice.
Okay, the third law is to make it easy, focusing on the response, the action itself. And here we must draw a clear line between motion and action.
This distinction is so critical because motion feels productive but produces no results.
Motion is planning, reading diet books, outlining an article, or researching investment strategies.
Action is doing the thing. Eating the healthy meal, writing the sentence, or making the first trade.
And motion is often just an advanced form of procrastination. It reduces anxiety because you feel like you're moving forward, but it will never deliver an outcome on its own.
The story of the photography class proves this perfectly. The professor divided students into two groups.
The quantity group, graded only on the sheer number of photos they produced, and the quality group, graded only on one perfect image.
And at the end of the term, the quantity group produced all the best photos. Why?
Because they were constantly shooting, learning from immediate mistakes, and iterating, while the quality group sat around speculating about the perfect shot.
Practice and sheer volume matter more than planning and speculation.
The brain is also inherently lazy. It operates under the law of least effort.
Biologically, yes. When faced with two similar options, the brain will always gravitate toward the one requiring the least physical or mental work.
This is why habits thrive on low friction.
Think historically. Agricultural expansion was 2 to 3 times faster along the east-west axis of the continents, where climate and daylight hours were consistent.
Then along the north-south axis, where farmers had to constantly domesticate new climate-specific crops.
The path of least resistance wins every time.
So our goal for good habits must be the systematic reduction of friction.
Precisely. We need to decrease the number of steps required to start the good habit. This is what the Japanese achieved with lean production, relentlessly looking to remove waste and unnecessary effort from factory processes.
A philosophy we can apply to our routines through addition by subtraction.
So what are the practical steps to reduce friction in our environment?
Priming the environment. You proactively prepare for future success so that when the cue arrives, the response requires zero willpower.
Oswald Knuckles calls this being proactively lazy. After watching TV, he doesn't just clean up, he resets the room.
Right, he puts the TV remote back on the stand, arranges the pillows, and sets out his water bottle.
So the next time he wants to relax, the environment is already frictionless.
It's making the first action as effortless as possible. This reminds me of mastering the decisive moment.
The decisive moment is that small, binary choice that determines the entire trajectory of the next hour.
Choreographer Twyla Tharp's cab ritual is a great illustration of this.
Her ritual wasn't the workout itself, but the act of hailing the cab and telling the driver the destination. Once she took that tiny first decisive step, the rest of the workout became inevitable.
For many people, simply changing into workout clothes is the decisive moment that guarantees the gym trip.
And to ensure we always take that decisive step, we use the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule scales every habit down to an entry point that takes less than 120 seconds. It creates a gateway habit.
And the true purpose is not to achieve results in those 2 minutes, but to master the act of showing up.
So, do 30 minutes of deep work becomes open my laptop and my writing file.
And read 20 pages of a book becomes take out the book and read the first sentence.
The key is to always stay below the point where the activity feels like work.
Writer Greg McKeown, for instance, religiously ended his journaling sessions while he still felt like writing more. He stopped before the effort turned into a chore, ensuring he would look forward to the next session.
You are casting votes for your identity just by showing up, even if it's only for 120 seconds.
Now for bad habits, we need the inversion. Make it difficult by increasing friction using commitment devices.
Yes, the goal is to make the undesirable behavior difficult, perhaps even impossible.
Consider Victor Hugo, facing an impossible deadline for The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He locked away all his clothes except a shawl, literally forcing him to stay inside and write.
He increased the friction of going outside to an extreme degree.
We can automate these commitment devices, which is often easier.
John Henry Patterson, recognizing employees were stealing from his supply store, didn't rely on motivational speeches. He installed the first cash register.
He automated ethical behavior by making stealing virtually impossible.
For modern problems, you can use outlet timers to cut power to your Wi-Fi router at night, making social media browsing difficult.
Or set up automatic bank transfers to make saving money inevitable. Friction is your friend when fighting bad habits.
And so we arrive at the fourth and cardinal rule of behavior change. Make it satisfying.
The science shows what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. This law focuses entirely on the reward, which is the mechanism that ensures the behavior is repeated next time.
The challenge we face in the 21st century is the profound delayed return mismatch.
Our Paleolithic brains evolved in an immediate return environment. If you see food, you eat it now. If you encounter danger, you run now. Immediate payoffs, guaranteed survival.
But modern society is a delayed return environment. We receive paychecks in weeks, fitness results in years, and retirement benefits in decades.
And this time, inconsistency is exactly why bad habits persist. They offer immediate pleasure, the sugar rush, the click of the like button.
Coupled with only delayed pain, like weight gain or financial anxiety.
And good habits, conversely, often have an immediate cost exercise, is tiring and only a delayed benefit, like better health next year.
So we have to bridge that gap by making the good habit immediately satisfying.
The key is to add an artificial, immediate reward. Look at Stephen Luby's Karachi soap study.
He gave residents Safeguard soap. Why did it work so well?
Because the soap was scented and enjoyable to use. While residents knew they should wash their hands for health, the satisfaction, the pleasant smell, and clean feeling created immediate reinforcement.
The immediate pleasurable feeling made the habit stick, leading to sustained hand-washing rates of 95% years later, long after the study finished.
The immediate sensory satisfaction was the reward.
Toothpaste manufacturers use the exact same psychology. The mint flavor and foaming action are not necessary for cleaning.
But they provide the immediate satisfying feeling of clean that reinforces the behavior.
We can apply this to self-reinforcement. If you skip a bad habit, say buying a coffee, immediately transfer that money into a separate reward savings account.
A trip to Europe or a new gadget fund.
Seeing that account grow provides immediate satisfaction and makes doing nothing feel highly rewarding.
A powerful technique for generating immediate satisfaction is habit tracking.
The stockbroker Trent Dearsmid used the paperclip strategy. He started with 120 paperclips in one jar and moved one to the empty jar after every single sales call he made.
This provided immediate, visual proof of his productivity, reinforcing the behavior instantly.
And the famous "don't break the chain" mantra, often attributed to Jerry Seinfeld, is simply visual tracking.
Marking the calendar with an X after a successful day leverages all four laws. It's obvious, it's attractive, and most importantly, it's immediately satisfying.
The gratification of marking that X.
And if you do slip up, the crucial rule that maintains this system is never miss twice.
Missing one day is an accident, an anomaly. Missing 2 days is the start of a new negative habit spiral.
Successful people rebound immediately. They don't fall into the all-or-nothing trap. Show up, even if it's just for 5 minutes, to reaffirm your identity.
However, we need a strong caution here because tracking can become dangerous. We must avoid Goodhart's law.
This is a vital caveat. Goodhart's law states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
So if we become so focused on optimizing a metric, say the number of hours worked or the number on the scale, that metric ceases to accurately reflect the true goal.
Right, which is meaningful output or genuine health.
Can you give us a concrete example of this law in action in the professional world?
Certainly. Imagine a large customer service center that desperately wants to improve efficiency, so they make average call time their primary target.
Employees quickly learn they are rewarded for low call times.
So they start hanging up prematurely on complex calls, rushing customers, or transferring difficult clients. The metric is optimized, but actual customer satisfaction and quality assurance suffer immensely.
The measurement guided the behavior, but away from the true goal.
That makes the distinction crystal clear. Measurement must guide and inform, not consume and dictate.
We need to focus on non-scale victories, noticing better energy, feeling stronger, or clothes fitting better, to maintain motivation when the primary metric inevitably stalls.
Finally, for the inversion, make it unsatisfying. We must add an immediate cost to inaction, usually through accountability.
We are fundamentally social creatures, and we deeply care about what others think. The social cost of failure is often more painful than the material cost.
And this is formalized in the habit contract, a verbal or written agreement, usually with an accountability partner or coach. stating the commitment and the specific immediate punishment for failure.
Brian Harris, for example, used a contract for weight loss where failure meant paying his trainer $200.
Or, even worse in his mind, having to wear his rival sports team's hat in public.
That social cost was far more motivating than the financial penalty.
And the public nature of failure is a massive incentive. Thomas Frank automated his failure. If he slept past his alarm, an automated tweet went out, offering $5 to strangers.
Publicizing your failure makes the cost immediate, tangible, and painfully social, forcing adherence.
The more immediate and costly a mistake, the faster you will learn and correct.
So as your habits become automatic, we move into the advanced realm of mastery, starting with the role of talent.
The truth is, genes do not rigidly predetermine your destiny, but they absolutely clarify your areas of greatest opportunity.
This is about choosing the right field of competition where your natural inclination gives you a head start.
Exactly. Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian, wasn't just dedicated. His rare physical abilities, long torso, short legs, massive wingspan, and a body that produced less lactic acid aligned perfectly with swimming.
So habits are easier to perform and infinitely more satisfying when they align with your inherent strengths.
Your genes tell you where to spend your effort most productively.
So how do we find that optimal alignment?
We rely on the explore-exploit trade-off. In the beginning, explore, try many things. Cast a wide net, try different roles or projects.
Once you find the solution or habit that yields the best results with the least effort, you shift to the exploit phase.
You spend 80–90% of your time exploiting that mastered system and 10–20% exploring new adjacent ideas.
This is the model behind Google's famous 20% rule, allowing employees to dedicate time to exploration outside their core tasks.
When that alignment happens, you often experience flow, that state of deep immersion where the world fades away and you lose track of time.
If a task puts you in flow, it's a strong indicator that you are exploiting your natural ability.
But once the habit is established, the biggest threat to mastery is not failure or lack of talent. It's boredom.
Mastery requires adherence to the Goldilocks rule.
Maintaining peak motivation by working on tasks that are right on the edge of your current abilities, a challenge of just manageable difficulty.
Not too hard, which causes anxiety, not too easy, which causes boredom. The challenge must be novel enough to be interesting, but not so hard that it causes you to give up.
Comedian Steve Martin demonstrated this beautifully. Early in his career, he incrementally expanded his stand-up routine by only a minute or two each year.
He always kept enough guaranteed, tested jokes to ensure victory and validation, but he added just enough new, challenging material to maintain novelty and keep himself engaged.
I think many people underestimate the threat of boredom. They expect every step of the mastery curve to be thrilling and rewarding.
They expect motivation to be a feeling, when in fact, for professionals, it's a commitment.
And the key difference between amateurs and professionals is the willingness to show up when the work isn't exciting, when the outcome becomes expected.
You have to fall in love with boredom and stick to the schedule, even when the outcome is predictable.
That commitment, regardless of feeling, is the truest path to mastery.
Finally, once habits become automatic, how do we avoid the complacency that comes with automation? We need a system for reflection and review.
Yes, the system can run perfectly and still be running toward the wrong goal, or an outdated identity.
Look at the Los Angeles Lakers under coach Pat Riley. They implemented the Career Best Effort Program, or CBE.
What did that entail?
It was rigorous. The program tracked complex statistics for every player, measuring their current performance against their own historical averages.
Players were then challenged to aim for a 1% improvement over their average, covering not just tangible metrics like field goal percentage,
but also unsung hero deeds like diving for loose balls.
but focus on continuous incremental improvement against their own previous best led the Lakers to 2 consecutive NBA championships.
And that focus on the self rather than the competition is the core of atomic habits.
And that reflection forces us to continuously revisit identity. You build evidence for a new identity by performing habits. But if you become too attached to your current identity,
like, I am a great soldier, or I am the undisputed master of this skill,
that pride can prevent future growth. Progress demands you are continuously editing, upgrading, and expanding your self-image, ensuring your identity doesn't become a barrier to the next level of achievement.
We started this deep dive with the trauma that forced a young man to rebuild his life one piece at a time.
And the synthesis is absolutely clear. The true holy grail of personal change isn't one heroic 100% improvement, but thousands of atomic habits stacking up.
Success is not a finish line to cross, but an endless system to refine and upgrade.
The four laws make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying are your four levers to shape that system.
If you are struggling with motivation, you need to make the habit more attractive. If you keep forgetting, the cue needs to be more obvious.
And remember the paradoxical nature of craving. The desire for change is the source of all human progress.
You are driven because you are dissatisfied with your current state, and that inherent human motivation must be captured and channeled effectively, not ignored.
So, as you finish this deep dive, identify one single source of friction or dissatisfaction in your life right now.
Maybe it's forgetting to hydrate, or maybe it's that frustrating friction when trying to start a work task.
And commit to one single atomic habit this week that applies one of the four laws to that friction point.
Choose the small action that delivers immediate satisfaction, proving to yourself that the 1% change is working today. What microevolution of the self will you begin right now?
Will you put the reusable water bottle directly next to your car keys, making it obvious so you can't leave without it?
Or will you use temptation bundling to pair that dreaded paperwork with 15 minutes of an audiobook you love, making it attractive?
Choose the action that casts the strongest vote for the person you want to become and start stacking those atoms of success.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.